We don't have to read the annual Catholic Directory to know that there's a great disparity between the number of people who have been baptized, confirmed, and received the Eucharist, and those who actively worship and participate in the church on a regular basis. It causes a lot of wondering, if not worrying and hand-wringing among parents and grandparents and godparents, religious educators, catechists, and clergy. Why? Why is this happening? Where did we go wrong? Conclusions often get jumped to. Maybe we should have never abandoned that Baltimore catechism for those more contemporary ones. Or some even blame the whole Vatican Council itself. Of course more people came to church in those decades before the Second Vatican Council than after. But that does not necessarily form a direct correlation sufficient to exclusively blame the Council as a cause for decline in religious commitment. That would be to ignore the whole upheaval in Western culture that started to occur in the mid-60s and went on into the 70s and 80s, when all things were held in question, including the role and authority of the church. Indeed, in previous decades, those before the Council, it was socially unacceptable not to be affiliated with some religion and to practice it. But do we really think that every person who filled the pews before 1965 was a deeply committed Christian, ever in the process of ongoing conversion? And after the 60s, it became more common and acceptable to drop out, to be a cultural Catholic, if any at all. And so the influence of religion has clearly, steadily declined. Yet just because the level of participation has declined does not make Jesus Christ, his gospel, the sacraments, his mission, and the community of faith that he founded to carry his mission out any less essential or valid. As a matter of fact, as we listen closely, we see that it was Jesus himself who first identified this phenomenon of people who are exposed to his teaching and everything he offers, but somehow they do not go on to grow in their faith. Instead, they drop out of the community of faith altogether. And that is evident as he told this parable of the sower and the seed. It isn't that the faith isn't presented. It is, and you know that because you too have presented faith. It's presented by families and parishes and Catholic schools and religious education programs. The problem is that the faith, like that seed, doesn't get to take root and grow because it doesn't land in soil that can support it. It isn't that all concerned don't try to impart faith to others, especially the younger generation. It's that we are doing so against a culture that is quite inhospitable to the limits that faith has to ultimately impose on our lives. Because if we accept the invitation to be disciples of Jesus Christ, then we lose the freedom to be our own highest authority. We have to cede that authority to God. Meanwhile, the culture, with its extremely individualistic tendencies and its lack of moral values, has become highly accessible through the media and thus ultimately more influential than any parenting, Catholic, or religious education school program could ever be. Consequently, many a budding believer has their faith choked off before they come to that full maturity to withstand the influences of everything that would contradict that faith. This past week, a friend came to do some trimming in the rectory backyard, and pointed out to me why the rose bushes which bloomed last month are now starting to look rather defoliated and sick. They are lacking proper nourishment, and so vulnerable, something has infected them. I could say, oh gee, that's too bad, and let them continue to wither. Or I can go out and try to improve the soil and find some spray to halt the illness. And that's indeed what I intend to do. The analogy holds true for those who are raised in the faith, but who are falling away from its practice. We could do nothing and let them wither, or we can do whatever we can to try to halt that and improve the soil, so to speak. We do that not by arguing with them, but by trying to continue to bear witness to them. That is, by never being afraid of showing our commitment to Jesus Christ and his church to them, by trying to be as authentic as possible in our practice of the faith, striving to see that our actions are always consistent with who we say we are and what we believe. And so potentially challenge them to take a pause and to look again and to listen to that call that they were also given by baptism, confirmation, and Eucharist, to be faithful followers of Jesus Christ in this time and place, as difficult as often that can be. So while we are challenged by this reality, let us be comforted that it was Jesus himself who first foresaw this phenomenon and so can sympathize with us. So let us be encouraged then to keep faithfully witnessing, keep working as we must in whatever small corner of the Lord's vineyard we find ourselves, trusting that we are doing what we can by our unwavering commitment to make the soil of other hearts more hospitable to the seeds of faith that are certainly being sown there.